I know you've just poured your heart into your duties, shouldering responsibilities. Now, it's time to return to yourself, to listen to your breath, to feel the peace gently spreading within. Imagine yourself sitting by a small, babbling brook, its flowing water singing a soft lullaby. The afternoon sunlight filters through the leaves, casting shimmering patterns on the water's surface. The bustling noises of life fade away, giving way to the serene stillness of nature. In this space, there are no judgments, no pressures. There is only you and these stories, shared gently, like a friend sitting beside you, quietly speaking of life's profound truths. Together, we will slow down, reflecting on journeys, choices, knots, and those small moments of awakening you may have experienced but haven't paused to truly hear. Let this voice guide you, not to some distant place, but back to your own heart. Perhaps within these stories, you'll find a touch of peace, a moment of understanding, or even a fresh perspective on the path you're walking. Allow yourself to relax, to settle, and who knows, you might uncover hidden beauty or inner strength quietly resting within you. Are you ready for this tranquil journey? Stay here a moment, and together, let us begin. The Story 1: The Five Monks. Long ago, in a remote valley, a monk sent a letter to a great temple requesting one monk to assist him. The abbot received the letter, gathered his disciples, and read it aloud. Then he said, "I need 5 to set out. Who is willing to go?" A disciple asked, "Master, the letter asks for only 1. Why send 5?" The abbot smiled. "The road is long and temptations abound. Go, and you will understand." The disciples chuckled, thinking he jested, but they chose 5 to depart the next morning. On the first day, they met a villager from a prosperous village. He said, "Our temple lacks a guide. Can one of you stay?" The village was wealthy, its life abundant. One monk wavered, thinking, "Staying to help these villagers is also a virtuous act. The monastery needs only 1." He stayed, and the 4 continued. On the second day, they reached a kingdom. A royal minister greeted them. "The king seeks a wise advisor. Whoever stays will gain honor and renown." A young monk hesitated, believing prestige could spread the Dharma. He said, "I'll stay to uphold the Buddha's teachings." "Brothers, go on. The monastery needs only 1." The 3 pressed forward. On the third day, they lost their way and arrived at a village where a kind man welcomed them, offering shelter and hearty meals. The next morning, as they prepared to leave, he pleaded, "Please, masters, have compassion for us and the villagers here. We need a guide to build a temple for worship." One monk, touched by the comfort and warm hospitality, said to the others, "Staying to help these people is a good deed. You two go on. The monastery needs only 1." He remained, and the 2 continued. On the 4th day, they sought lodging in another village, but the locals were hostile, challenging them. "What's trustworthy about your Buddha's teachings? Stay and debate our scholar." One monk, angered, declared, "I must stay to defend the truth of the Dharma." "Brother, go on alone. The monastery needs only one." He stayed, and the last monk journeyed on, reaching the monastery. Reflection on the journey. The tale of the 5 monks traveling to the monastery is not merely a physical journey, but an inner pilgrimage filled with challenges that each of us encounters in life. The first monk, swayed by the prosperity of the wealthy village, reflects greed and the temptation to compromise for material comfort, which can easily divert us from our higher goals and ideals. How often are we pulled by short-term gains, by material lures, letting our greater aspirations fade? The second monk, dreaming of fame and power, deluded himself that status would fulfill his ideals. Isn't this a part of us all, craving recognition, sometimes at the cost of our core values? Yet true influence comes from sincerity and selfless service. The third monk chose the ease of a welcoming home, shying away from the challenges ahead. Haven't we all at times sought comfort over growth, preferring ease to the trials that unlock our potential? Does such comfort bring lasting happiness, or merely delay our untapped possibilities? The fourth monk, led by anger and pride, became blinded by the need to prove himself. Like him, we sometimes let ego obscure truth, losing our ability to listen and understand. Only by humbling ourselves, seeing with an open heart, can we find true peace and wisdom. Finally, the lone monk who persevered, unmoved by any temptation, reached his destination. Isn't this the deep call within each of us, yearning for steadfastness and loyalty to our beliefs? No matter how many detours or enticements life offers, only perseverance, guided by a noble purpose, leads to true maturity and fulfillment. The journey of the 5 monks has concluded, each with their own choices and detours on the path of spiritual practice. Each carries a lesson, an experience of temptations and steadfastness. Yet our lives are not solely defined by grand journeys with clear destinations. They are also woven from countless small interactions, daily encounters with those around us and with our own hearts. Often, it is in these seemingly trivial moments that invisible knots lie hidden, much like the story I wish to share next. Story 2: The Handkerchief and Its Knots. During a sermon, the Buddha unexpectedly brought a beautifully crafted piece of cloth, its edges finely sewn. Upon closer inspection, it was a handkerchief. This surprised his disciples, for the Buddha rarely carried such items. As he spoke, the Buddha slowly tied several knots in the handkerchief. After making 4 or 5, he asked his disciples, "Is this still the same handkerchief as before, or has it become something else?" The disciples exchanged glances, unsure of his meaning, yet one boldly answered, "Venerable Lord, it is still the same handkerchief, but its condition has changed." The Buddha nodded, pleased, and asked further, "The handkerchief remains a handkerchief, but can it be restored to its original state?" Another disciple replied, "Venerable Lord, of course it can. You need only untie the knots." The Buddha continued, "How then do we untie these knots? Will pulling the cloth from both ends make them come undone?" The disciples hesitated. While listening to the sermon, they had only occasionally glanced at the Buddha's hands and did not fully see how he tied the knots. Thus, when asked how to untie them, few felt confident to respond. Finally, one disciple ventured, "Venerable Lord, had we closely watched you tie the knots, untying them would likely be easier. Each knot is tied differently, some from the left, others from the right. Pulling the cloth blindly from both ends would only tighten them further." The Buddha smiled. "Exactly. Life is like this handkerchief. Each temptation, greed, fame, or pride is a knot in the heart. When you argue, rage, or chase desires, you tie more knots. To untie them, do not pull at the conflict. Be mindful, see the cause clearly, and release them with compassion and wisdom. Only then will your heart return to purity, like this handkerchief." Reflection on the handkerchief. The handkerchief and the knots the Tathagata created are not merely a simple image. They embody the life of each one of us. What do these knots represent? Are they the temptations, insatiable greed, vain ambitions for fame, towering pride? Or are they the silent conflicts within the heart, burning anger, tormenting envy, uncontrollable desires? Recognizing these knots in our hearts is the first step on the path to liberation. So, whenever your mind is troubled, restless, or caught in the whirlwind of disputes, pause for a moment and ask, "What knot is binding my heart? Where did it come from?" Just as one cannot untie a knot without seeing how it was tied, we cannot resolve the troubles of the heart without mindfulness to understand their roots. Instead of acting on impulse, practice observing the flow of thoughts and emotions. Take a moment of stillness, perhaps a few deep breaths, a brief meditation, or simply writing down what weighs on your heart. This is how we shine light into the hidden corners of the soul, clearly discerning the deeper causes behind our actions. Trying to pull the handkerchief hastily only tightens the knots. Likewise, in life, rushing into arguments or forcing others to change deepens conflicts. Patience is the golden key to every door. When facing discord, slow down, listen with your whole heart, and address each issue gently, step by step. In doing so, you not only understand the issue and the other person, but also awaken a deeper wisdom within. Ultimately, the greatest power to untie any knot, whether in the heart or in relationships, is compassion. Compassion does not blame or demand change from others. It is understanding and acceptance. Practice forgiveness. Offer small acts of kindness, be it a sincere apology or a modest gesture of help. Compassion dissolves tensions, unties conflicts, and restores the heart to a state of purity and peace, like the handkerchief smoothed out once more. Remember, each day, live a little slower, look within, and use compassion to untie the knots that bind us. The handkerchief with its tangled knot shows us that, at times, the troubles and conflicts in our hearts and relationships are much the same. The more we try to resolve them with haste, the more entangled they become. To find peace, we need mindfulness, patience, and above all, understanding. Similarly, knots do not only arise in the heart or relationships, but can also form from habits and unchecked desires in daily life. The next story will reveal this more clearly. Story 3: The Wealthy Man. One day, while the Buddha was speaking with his disciples at a monastery in the ancient Indian city of Savatthi, an unusual visitor arrived. From his fine clothing and ornate jewelry, it was clear he was immensely wealthy. Yet, he appeared far from joyful. His face and voice betrayed exhaustion and listlessness. Clasping his hands respectfully, the man said, "Venerable Lord, knowing you were here, I came to pay my respects. Please forgive me for not performing the customary rites as I wish, for my body is so heavy, every part aches with pain and fatigue, and each step is a struggle." The man was stunned, not expecting these to be the Buddha's first words to him. He had come merely to express admiration and, if possible, seek enlightenment to free his mind from the dullness and stagnation that daily drained him, leaving his life feeling meaningless. Eager to hear more, he replied that he would be grateful to know. "There are 5 causes of the discomfort and pain you endure," the Buddha said sternly. "First, you overeat at dinner. Second, you sleep too much. Third, you lead an indulgent life. Fourth, you care for nothing. Fifth, you are idle." The man was startled. "How does the Buddha, from so far away, know my life so well?" he thought. As a man of great wealth, he had tasted every delicacy the world offered, eating to excess each time. He reveled through the night in lavish gatherings, drinking and feasting. When tired, he slept. When sated, he partied again. His life was a blur of fleeting pleasures, often indistinguishable between day and night, sobriety and intoxication. And why work with such riches? Labor was for the poor. "What must I do to escape this misery, Venerable Lord?" he asked sincerely. The Buddha replied calmly, "Learn to control yourself in eating. Moreover, find work that draws out your abilities and benefits society. Do this, and your ailments will naturally lessen, and you will live longer." At these words, the man felt a sudden awakening. He bowed deeply to the Buddha and left with newfound joy. Sometime later, the wealthy man returned. Without introduction, he was barely recognizable. Gone was the sluggish, burdened figure. He now moved with grace and agility, his face and demeanor far brighter than before. Remarkably, he walked to the Buddha on foot, no longer needing a carriage or attendants. Upon arriving, he knelt before the Buddha with utmost sincerity and reverence. Moved, he said, "Venerable Lord, you have healed my physical ailments. Now, I come to seek your guidance to awaken my mind." The Buddha spoke, "Ordinary people only nurture the body, but the wise nurture the soul. Indulging your palate destroys you. By following the Dharma, you will shield yourself from evil and live a long, meaningful life." Reflection on the wealthy man. We often hear of the dangers of desire, but rarely do we see its devastating toll on body and soul. The story of the wealthy man is a vivid testament. Unchecked indulgence in food and a hedonistic lifestyle not only breeds physical illness, but also creates a heavy, stagnant spirit. Unrestrained desires, from simple material cravings to boundless pursuits of pleasure, are like knots that tighten, blocking true serenity and peace. In our modern world, this is ever more apparent. we are easily swept into cycles of overconsumption or fleeting virtual pleasures on social media, neglecting balance and moderation. Practicing restraint is not just a moral counsel, but a vital need to safeguard physical health and free the mind from unnecessary burdens. Conversely, idleness and a lack of purpose silently erode the spirit. The wealthy man, despite material abundance, lived a life adrift, without direction or drive. Today, many feel lost or empty, even with stable jobs, because they lack connection to deeper values or the sense of contributing to something greater. Seeking work or passions that bring meaning is not just about earning a living, but about unlocking potential, affirming self-worth, and making a difference in the community. To change, the Buddha emphasized the need for mindfulness to recognize the root causes of suffering. We often blame external circumstances, yet rarely confront our harmful habits or negative thoughts that quietly shape our lives. Weekly reflection is not a luxury, but a necessity, allowing us to see the ruts we fall into, repetitive patterns holding us back. Only by facing the truth can we begin to transform. Moreover, living with compassion and aiming for the common good is not only a noble act, but a way to protect our own soul. By helping others, sharing and empathizing, we feel more connected to the world and reduce selfishness, a major source of suffering. In a society fixated on wealth and status, practicing kindness and serving the community fosters peace and purpose within us. Finally, nurturing the soul is not an abstract ideal, but an essential need for a long, meaningful,